Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the PP Political Podcast for episode number 78, I believe. I think it's 78. 78. And today, I'm joined here with Michael. That feels weird to say. With Bodeker. To talk about we're back on the election timetable. We're almost at the end, so we've almost made it. We're at the 2008 election, so where President Obama gets his first term in office, and he goes up against Senator John McCain, the late Senator John McCain. So, yeah, I guess how have you been, Bodeker, and what are your initial thoughts on this election?
Well, it's been a minute since we've done a podcast, but I got the George Washington alumni shirt on now, so moving up in the world, as they say. But yeah, it's good to be back, and we've got the first election. I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about the podcast. Is the first election in my living memory, which is pretty. I wasn't old enough to remember 2004, and I wasn't alive for 2000. 2008 is the first one that I genuinely remember.
Yeah.
Not like vividly, of course, but I remember my parents watching it with them in our family room at our house. And
yeah, I don't remember this. I don't remember this one. I think 2012 is my first one.
You probably would have been slightly too young. For
I think so. This is I was 4. So, yeah, I think this one, I wouldn't say, I guess on the Democratic side, this is probably the most contentious one we've had in a while. Democratic primary. Very long primary season. We'll get into that. Republicans, I admittedly don't know much about the Republican side of this election. I know, well, obviously, outside of Sarah Palin being the nominee for vice president, there's a good documentary, there's a good book, Game Change, about that whole saga. Very entertaining documentary, and a good book as well. So I'd recommend that if you guys are interested. I think it's on HBO Max, or just Max, my bad. But yeah, anyways, let's get into it. So 2008, I guess what's going on in 2008 around this, the biggest thing I guess would be the financial, the beginnings of the financial crash, kind of starting to see a little bit of a economic, I guess the main part of it, right? Yeah, I guess you're starting to see the 08 crisis really get into effect here.
Yeah, the Great Recession. The Iraq War is still active. Afghanistan is still active. Those are both still ongoing conflicts. So there's stuff going on abroad. There's stuff going on here at home. I mean, we're still not too far removed from 9/11, technically, at this time either.
It's true. Yeah, I mean,
9/11 is still on people's mind.
Yeah, you're. I think at the start, George Bush leaving office very unpopular. He had that huge outpouring of support after 9/11, but everything post then, I think for a lot of reasons that people kind of agree with now with Iraq and everything, which kind of just steeply declined, and his 2008 July 2008 approval was 22%. So one of the most unpopular presidents, probably the most unpopular president in a long time when he was leaving office.
It's also important too, the last 16 years at this point, we've had 2 presidents.
That's true.
It was 16 years of Clinton, 8 years of Clinton, and then 8 years of Bush. So we've had, in the last 20 years, basically, the country's had 3 leaders, and that's Bush, Clinton, and Bush.
Yeah, this has been
It was a very stable period in terms of leadership at the top in the country. I mean, and before H.W. Bush was Reagan. So, I mean, really, it had been almost 30 years at this point of pretty stable leadership at the top. Take away 1992, because as we covered in the 1992 podcast, that was just kind of a weird year.
Yeah.
And then 2008, I think, kind of shakes everything.
Yeah, and you're kind of looking at a generational election in a way. I mean, you have a very young Barack Obama. I think he was in his 40s, second youngest president, I believe, in American history. Then you have John McCain, a little bit older, more experienced. Yet I'm looking at the thing right now. He was 71 in 2008, so he definitely was a lot more of an. I guess you could say when you think of, unfortunately, presidents now, they're in their 70s. Actually, they're in the late 70s, almost 80s. I think Biden is 80, right? So a lot of stuff. Yeah, he might be 81. Yeah. So John McCain's a little ahead of his time, I guess, on age. But anyways, let's get into the conventions. The Democratic, or not the conventions, the nomination process. The Democratic Party's process was an absolute mess. Big heavy hitters running for this election after two straight losses. John Kerry was in the running. So let's take it back. So 2000, Al Gore loses. 2004, John Kerry loses. So you have that, and then you have John Edwards, the running mate of John Kerry's in 2004. He's the first one to throw his hat in the ring. Then Senator Joe Biden, now president, throws his hat in the ring.
And a couple of times before this, too.
Yeah, a couple of times before this as well. Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico, who kind of just disappeared. I believe he died recently. Rest in peace to him. He is also in there. Tom Vilsack, and he's the Secretary of Agriculture recently.
Is he currently? Because I believe he was also in the Obama administration.
He was in the Obama administration. He might be right now. He is. Yes.
Now.
Yeah, he is. So Secretary Vilsack and Senator Evan Baya, who I don't really know much about, but he was there as well. And then obviously Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama was a senator at this time, famously a senator for 2 years, following the Abraham Lincoln train of being 2 years in office before running for president, and then Hillary Clinton, who has been around for forever, really, for the whole length of the American experiment. So yeah, this was a very contentious election. I think this is the first time this is the beginning of and this is a turning point election, not because necessarily the results, but because of the way the campaigns were run. And especially Obama's campaign, which has been famous for really revolutionizing campaigning, utilizing the internet to probably the most effective any candidate ever will, just because of how much of a advantage it gave the campaign when you have one campaign utilizing the internet to its maximum, then you have everybody else kind of doing traditional things. So balancing that out was a massive win for Obama. And yeah, I guess we can just talk about the primary for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at it that Obama really gets fuel under his feet in Iowa. Iowa's obviously the first, and now that obviously that changed this year, and that was a huge fiasco. And but Obama, this is really where people start to see him as the change candidate, and where change really starts to pick up. And we've talked about this before, I think even on other podcasts as well as in our kind of just our own time, that Obama was a uniquely gifted candidate. You've already touched on it with the use of the internet, but just the way that he spoke, he's a charismatic guy. I think, McCain and Republicans who voted for McCain, and as well as for Mitt Romney in 2012, which we'll talk a little bit about, would agree that he was a charismatic guy. He was a younger gentleman than McCain, and especially younger than both Trump and Biden now. But he was able to capture a segment of the electorate that was not particularly energized about voting, and made them Democratic powerhouses. Obviously, Black Americans vote statistically very heavily for Democrats, and Obama was able to capitalize on that. He was also able to win over independents and working class white voters who were traditionally Democratic, as well as you could even argue right-leaning voters in Ohio, in Iowa. And a lot of those voters kind of shift in the later years of Obama's term, in Ohio, especially in Indiana. But looking, when we get to the general, Obama's winning states that now you would wonder, how is a Democrat winning that state? That should be impossible.
Yeah, I think, Obama just, and this is a little bit more general election, like you're saying, but Obama just, combined with the unpopularity of Bush leaving office, with the financial crisis, with the symbolic change that Obama represented, obviously first black president, but not even just that, much younger than any president in a long time, and just a great speaker. I guess you can appeal to every swath of the population, even older voters who want a more traditional president. You got that with President Obama, or I guess candidate Obama at that time. And yeah, you can see the map, not to get too far ahead, but you can see he won Iowa, Florida, North Carolina was in play. These states that you don't see really as a potential play. And you could also say Obama also won Nevada, and Nevada didn't really it took it really now Nevada's it's a swing state, but you could say it's more of a lean blue lean Democratic swing state because of Obama's work with minority voters, and yeah, I think he definitely did a good job for like the future of the Democratic Party electorally, being competitive in even though they're not competitive in like Iowa anymore or Florida, like Nevada, solidifying like New Mexico, Colorado, those states, even Virginia, you could say. Yeah, but anyways, the primary season was crazy because not only do you have Obama, you also have Hillary Clinton, and this was like a heavyweight battle, blow for blow, in the primary process. It's kind of crazy. I just don't think it sucks that I guess you could kind of say the 2016 Bernie versus Hillary was somewhat similar, but nothing like this. This went back and forth, back and forth. Obama won Iowa, like you said. Hillary Clinton comes back, wins New Hampshire very closely after Obama had surged in the polls. We get to Super Tuesday, we get to South Carolina and everything, and then we get to Super Tuesday, and we're basically tied. 847 delegates to 834. Obama versus Clinton. It's crazy. You move on.
Clinton goes and wins Ohio and Rhode Island.
Exactly, yeah. You just keep
but
back and forth.
Obama definitely gaffed in Pennsylvania. He made a comment at a fundraiser in San Francisco that small town Americans cling to guns. And I think that's a statement that Hillary Clinton probably agrees with, especially that flash forward to 2016, kind of with her deplorables comment.
Yeah.
But of course, 2008, they're competing against each other, and so Clinton's campaign really jumped on Obama for that comment. But it really obviously didn't matter in the end.
It really didn't, yeah.
Nomination. You know.
And also, Hillary Clinton didn't win
No.
Pennsylvania when it counted for her in 2016. So I mean, like, I don't know. Just to throw that out there, because I think we love roasting Hillary Clinton for her neglect of the American people while campaigning. Should have went to Wisconsin, Madam Secretary. Should have visited Wisconsin. But yeah, no, this primary season was crazy. There was like contention with Florida and Michigan because their primaries were held. I think they held their primaries before they moved their primaries up in the calendar. Kind of a similar situation to what happened with the Iowa caucus and New Hampshire, all of that stuff this year with the Democratic Party. But this time, what ended up happening was Florida and Michigan only got half votes at the convention, so their delegates basically got cut in half. But yeah, Obama won the nomination on June 3rd. One of the latest campaign wins in a long time, and it probably will be for a while too, unfortunately. And I think this is just good to see. I think it's good to have these drawn out contests in a sense because then you have to. I feel like the one thing that presidential candidates never do, and definitely don't do anymore, is like visit states that they don't expect to compete in at all, and like not even like at the general election level. Like you're going to primary season, like if you're in a fight for every single primary, then it's good for everybody because you're actually going to these states. It's the same argument with like, in my opinion, having a split electoral college where everything's like proportional, because then you have every district matters, right? So it's like it makes it much more interesting, and it also holds the candidates to account. So actually, I wish we would see such a competitive primary on either side. This year we didn't really see that at all. But yeah, I don't know. I just found that kind of interesting. June 3rd is crazy late, and then she refused to concede too. Hillary Clinton refused to concede until like later that week. So yeah.
Oops. But yeah, this was like what you said. This is the first election, basically, since 1952, where neither the incumbent president nor the incumbent vice president sought the presidency. And it was the third election since 1896, where neither the president, the incumbent president, the incumbent vice president, or a member of the cabinet sought the presidency. I mean, this was a very unique election where it was so open.
I feel like
when we go back in time, like there's so many different caveats of people that have served in administrations or running for re-election, but this was just an open race. I mean, it really is, and I think, hot take maybe, but I think 2028 may be a 2008 kind of part two.
I hope so.
I think that there's going to be a lot of change in terms of the candidates and platforms.
And there has to be, right? Like you would expect. You've kind of seen on the Republican side what they're shaping up to be. Possibly. Democrats, who knows? Honestly, the Democrats have done an amazing job of suppressing any opposition in their party to where Joe Biden. Apparently, Joe Biden's the most popular. I've had members of like state delegations like to the DNC be like, yeah, we could do so much better than Biden. Everybody knows that. It's not like a secret. Everyone's like, yeah, if we could vote for literally anyone else, like that would be great. But we're bound to vote for Biden. So,
Well, I think that's partly still their own intuition.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
He's the best candidate.
I don't think it's true. Yeah. It's kind of they've really tricked themselves into believing it, right?
Well, I think it's partly, and not to get too distracted, but I think it was such a desperation to win in 2020 that the kind of 2024 didn't matter. And now we're here in 2024, and it turns out 2024 kind of does matter. This is another one in the series of this is the most important election in our lives.
Yeah.
And this is what part 4 at this point, part 3.
It's been a while, yeah. It's been a couple of them, yeah. Definitely since
defeating Obama was the most important election of our lives in 2012.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was such an open race, and on the Republican side, you've got Rudy Giuliani, who's probably more famous for other things now.
Yeah.
But McCain's age was kind of an issue, but also Giuliani, we forget, was pro-choice, and that was a pretty big issue in this election as well for the Republicans, at least in the primary. Mike Huckabee, shout out to Huckabee Sanders, her father, was running for president.
Mitt Romney, shout out.
And then McCain and
Ron Paul,
Giuliani,
and my boy Ron Paul. Shout out to Ron Paul for trying. Love Ron Paul. Great guy.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he endorses McCain.
Yeah. On Super Tuesday, yeah. See, and this one wasn't as contentious, and I think Giuliani being pro-choice. See, it's such an interesting dynamic. Like you have Chris Christie, Republican, not pro-choice, but is pro-choice, right? Like New England Republicans just are more liberal. Like Chris Sununu, Phil Scott, these guys, Larry Hogan, these guys are pro-choice Republicans.
Larry Hogan's probably going to be Maryland's next senator.
It's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I mean, I don't see why But the problem is it doesn't work nationally, right? I do think if a Giuliani got to a general election, he'd win. If you have a Republican on because I guess, I don't know, it just depends on like it's the same argument, and this is what I'm going to derail. Like if President Trump came out and been like, oh, we need to have an immediate ceasefire or whatever in Israel and Gaza, and no one that's going to vote for Trump is going to not vote for him. A big enough, sizable chunk of people aren't going to vote for him or aren't going to not vote for him because of that. So, I think that he can say whatever he wants on any issue, as long as it's not the economy or something.
And I think that's kind of an Obama thing, too.
Yeah.
I think President Obama could say a lot of things that, people that really like him are going to say, yeah, okay. I mean, I don't agree with it, but not changing my vote. And I think President Trump has that same appeal.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing to have, because it's important to have diversifications in your own party. The nationalization we've talked about the nationalization. We saw the old elections where there's 4 different Democratic parties running for the nomination. Yeah, it's
Dixiecrats.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that's what we should. I think that's the best. That's the healthiest version of our system, I guess. Because if we're not gonna have coalition governments, we need to have something. Although coalition governments would be fun. Could you imagine how long does Joe Biden last? Does he outlast the head of lettuce?
No.
In a coalition government. Oh man. Okay, anyways, McCain wins. He wins in March. Pretty much easier for McCain. But even if he wins earlier, which he does, he wins by 2 months earlier. He clinches the nomination 2 months before Obama. I mean, it's just tough to see what's going on in the administration of the Bush administration with the 2008 crisis, the super unpopular Iraq War, Afghanistan, all of that, and be okay, even I have a 2-month head start, but I mean, what can you can only do so much, right? And I think that's a little bit of a thing. I don't know, a block that McCain ran into. Let's get into the general election and the internet campaigns. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just interesting. I mean, the Iraq War obviously is still a huge issue. We've been looking for weapons of mass destruction for a couple of years now with no luck. Bush's unpopularity, obviously, with the war, Hurricane Katrina, we forget about that. Turns out people didn't like Bush because of that, and you can still go to New Orleans today, and you can still kind of tell where Hurricane Katrina went through.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it's a sad reality,
Yeah.
but you can still kind of see that. And then, obviously, McCain's age, he didn't quite handle it the same way that President Reagan did. People saw that as an issue, but I don't think McCain, not that he wasn't a charismatic gentleman, but I think Reagan was a unique political figure in this way that he could kind of make people believe that he was better than he actually was. And not that he wasn't a great person or great leader, but he could make people believe things about him that may not have always necessarily been 100% good. And McCain didn't really have that same charisma about him. He was well respected, and I think still well respected among the vast majority of Americans. But he actually, so believe it or not, we've never had a president born in the 1930s.
Was Joe Biden not born in the 1930s?
No, he was born in I think 1942.
Oh yeah, wait, he'd have to be. Yeah, he'd be 90. Yeah, okay. 42. 42.
Yeah, 42. So we've never had a president born in the 1930s, and we never will because that decade's come and gone. Like we've had a couple of guys in the 40s. Obama was
Trump. Trump and Obama were and Biden were the 40s, right? So.
Yeah, Trump and Biden were the 40s. Obama, I think, is the late 50s.
Clinton's the 40s, probably.
Yeah, I think she's the 40s.
Or sorry, Carter. My bad.
He was the 1920s.
Oh, really? He's way older than I thought.
I think.
That's wild.
I think he was born in 1925. I think.
Wow.
24. I think he turns 100 this year.
Yeah, he does turn 100 this year, huh? October 1st. I didn't know he's that. I thought he was just in his early 90s.
Yeah, but I mean, he would have been 52 when he was elected. I mean, that's not too old.
That's a good age. It's a good age for president.
Yeah, anyways. Yeah, so Obama really doesn't attack McCain for his age, though, which I respect, like calling his message old instead of him old. I kind of believe that. I mean,
yeah, I think he had to do that. It's a good line to walk because otherwise you just come off as like a elder abuser or something. I don't know.
Obama uses a BlackBerry, which I remember my dad was obsessed with his BlackBerry back in the day. Like that's still his favorite phone ever, which kind of dates us, I guess, when we're talking about old technology like that. But Obama uses kind of the modern technology. McCain doesn't use a computer, cell phone. He was definitely a boomer in that way. Even though he was a silent generation. Obama promises actually universal health care, which is very interesting for an American leader. And then full employment, a green America, and an America respected instead of feared by its enemies.
Yeah. And then on the McCain side, the McCain campaign is just unfortunate. I think this is a different time of American politics. Like you can get away with being 70, your opponent's not going to attack you. I mean, now if you go to Instagram, you see President Trump. He's posting memes about Biden being old. They're actually very funny. I think I mentioned them before. That's what the campaigning's become. This is what Obama did to us. This is the campaigning. This is what internet campaigning has become. But McCain tries to basically compensate for being old by picking Sarah Palin, governor of Alaska. Has been governor for 2 years? I think she was elected in maybe 4 years. I don't know. Was she elected in 06 or 04? But one term for sure. And what do you think about that pick? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about the Sarah Palin pick?
I think she was much more down to earth than him, though.
Well, she was literally just a mom. She was legitimately just The
problem is she was great for. I don't want to blame her downfall on the media because she definitely gaffed herself, but she was just great fodder for people to make fun of her, and I don't think she wasn't particularly charismatic about kind of pushing it off, and I think that hurt her. I mean, she also ran for the Alaskan House seat after Don Young passed away. Rest in peace, Young.
Yep.
And lost.
Yeah, no, Mary Peltola. I don't know. I mean, and that's been it's been 20 years, I guess. Well, no, it has been 20 years. It's been 15 years since that election, 08 to the 20. So 14 years since the 2022 election, where she lost twice, not just once. She lost in the vacancy election, then she lost in November against Peltola in her actual race. And Peltola looks like she's going to win again. She's a very popular representative, from what I understand. She seems like a cool person. I don't know. She always talks about fish. I follow her on Twitter. She's big on fishing, I guess. So
Pretty nice. And again, we're talking about context. The 2008 Great Recession. McCain. The problem is when there's economic downturn, like we've talked about, incumbents don't do well. Well, technically, Republicans are the incumbents in this election. That's just kind of how it is. And so you've got McCain in a weird spot where he's trying to push his own platform, but he has to defend Bush in a lot of different ways because, well, the Republicans are on the defensive right now just because they've just had the president for 8 years.
yeah,
And it also doesn't help when the media asks you how many houses you own and you don't know the exact number off the top of your head.
yeah,
Turns out regular people can't really relate to that.
yep,
And Obama releases a pretty effective ad called Seven.
yeah.
It's gap in there.
I think, yeah,
Ouch.
and I think so this is the kind of this election is interesting because this shows the power of the economy in a presidential election because there weren't real social issues being bandied around. There was foreign policy issues, don't get me wrong, but not social. Like if you look at 2022, that was an election everyone was like, and I guess even 2020, people were like, okay, because I do think in 2020, let's take that one first. If you have just an election on the economy, if the election was in March, President Trump is winning in a landslide. COVID happens, people see the social fallout to COVID, and you can see that President Trump was not prepared to deal with COVID from a social level. And then he lost. And he still lost in a close election. Like, let's not get it wrong. Now you're in 2024, and also in 2022, when you have probably the worst section of President Biden's economy, you could say, at least like during election time. Democrats still win because they message on abortion. So, because of the Dobbs decision. So, they were kind of bailed out by a social issue. In 2024, you have very persistent and a lot of polling showing that people do not like the economy and the state of the economy, no matter how much people say.
And immigration, which is also a problem for incumbents.
Yeah, and who's in the White House right now? Who's in the Senate? Democrats. And it actually looks like Democratic Senate candidates could be winning in their own races, but President Biden is so far underwater right now, mainly because he just hasn't been able to. I feel like the messaging on the economy, people saying the economy is good because of like Dow numbers or inflation numbers, because like when you say like the inflation is down 9%, it was 9% or whatever earlier, now it's 3%, like from COVID to now. You have to look at the year-over-year number. You have to look at the cumulative numbers. You can't look at the year by year. Over in the last 4 years, inflation's been up like 20%. Like that's the number.
That's the thing that the messaging struggles is because people get mad, right? When you say, "Oh, well, inflation's only 3% this year." Well, when things are 20% more expensive than they were 2 years ago when I was buying the same thing,
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Then people get mad. They're like, "Well,"
they should, yeah, and they have a right to get mad, yeah.
And that's a fair point.
So
this is kind of the economy runs elections in so many different ways.
And
you can kind of bail yourself out with social issues.
Yeah.
Not bail yourself out. You can get bailed out by I also think that 2020 with the BLM movement, I think that did a lot of
that bailed out Joe Biden. That bailed out Biden. That bailed out Biden in his own, I think, in his own campaign, in his primary campaign, more than anything. But I agree. No, I agree. And that's my point. Like in 2008, you don't have that social, you don't have that crux like that crutch. You don't have like something to point to and distract people from the economy because the economy is so bad.
Start part of the social issues era.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, and 2008, this is an important election. I mean, like if you look at the debate numbers, people are tuning in by the millions. Like first debate, 52 million. The vice presidential debate, 70 million. That's the most watched one. I wonder how much of that is because Sarah Palin. Everyone wants to be like, "Who is this? Who is this?" Like really. And then you have 63 million the second debate, and then 56.5, so 57 million in the third debate, the presidential debates. So these are very well watched events, and I think that's good. I mean, it's good. I mean, like we have a debate coming up in less than a month, June 27th. Very odd, but.
Only 2 debates this year, though.
Only 2 debates, yeah. One's in September, one's in June. We'll be covering those. But I'm excited to see what the viewing numbers are because these are very high numbers. And if you go back and watch these debates, these are very well done debates. These aren't like just mudflinging contests. These are fairly good like policy oriented debates that I think actually did a lot of, even if they didn't like change anyone's vote necessarily, they definitely did a lot to inform the public. I think that's a good thing. That's obviously a good thing. So that was good.
And then if we look at the expense report, the expense summary, Barack Obama raised almost $800 million in this cycle. John McCain raised almost 308. So Barack Obama raised almost 780 million. McCain raised almost 380 million. McCain raised half of what Obama raised. I mean, that is an astronomical difference. I mean, Democrats raised an unbelievable amount of money in 2008. I mean, it was ridiculous. And Democrats do pretty consistently out earn Republicans. I mean, that's usually kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an unbelievable amount of fundraising. I mean, there's internet fundraising. I mean, Ron Paul made $6 million on YouTube in a day.
Let's go. Yeah, no, that's and not even like just the fundraising alone. Like the advent of social media really boosted Obama. A team that understands how to use it, like they did, is actually probably rare, because Pew Research studies, like a lot of big studies, have shown like large numbers, 40% or so of Americans saw, like, this is the beginning of people, like, I would say that number's higher now. If in 2008 it was 40% of people that are like seeing news on like the election through like whatever, Facebook or I guess MySpace, I don't know what was going on back then now it's probably like in the 50s, 60s, probably way more than that, honestly, because no one's watching CNN, Fox. That's not happening. So yeah, like, and you also bring out another demographic. That's the other thing that we're not even like we're neglecting to mention. We kind of talked about it at the beginning, but like if you're going on social media, you're targeting that 18 to 24 probably then demographic that has probably never been as bombarded or energized to vote, because they've just always never really been watching, you know, like the nightly news or anything. They have it directly sent to them. And if you look at, I mean, like Obama won the 18 to 24 demographic 66 to 32. Actually 10%. Yeah, and they're 10% of the total vote. So it's not even like I guess it's probably similar, but like I would bet that would have been much lower otherwise without Obama's campaign. I guess you could call it a masterclass. I do think Obama's one of the best candidates in American history for president.
And this is also interesting. We talk about media bias right now. It actually seems as there was a lot of debate around media bias even in 2008, which is 15 years ago. President Obama, or then Senator Obama, received much more positive media coverage than Senator McCain. And now there was one that found an October 29th study before the election found 29% of stories about Obama to be negative, compared to 57% of stories about McCain being negative, which is pretty crazy. And so the media bias, and this has been a debate now for decades, and of course President Trump amplifies that debate during his presidency with kind of, the fake news, like all of the sound bites that we can all remember. But it's something that's also been an issue since 2008, and even before that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if we just go to the election like results, this is honestly a blowout. Like, Obama wins the popular vote by over 7%, about 9.5 million votes more. Wins 306. This is absolutely a blowout. 365 electoral votes to John McCain's 173. Sorry about that. Not only that, Obama carries 28 states, plus D.C. and Nebraska second, which is like the Omaha area of Nebraska, because they have proportional representation as of now. And McCain only wins 22 states. So yeah, this was a blowout of an election. And who is texting me, man? Stop. Yeah, this is a blowout. I mean, like, there's no other way to say it. And you can look at the demographics, go further, and like the race demographics are crazy. So blacks 18 to 29, 95 to 4 in favor for Obama, 30 to 44, 96 to 4, 45 to 64, 96 to 3, and 65 and older 94 to 6. These are crazy numbers.
Well, and Obama really accelerates the trend of younger voters voting for Democrats because, like, when we looked at Bush in 2000, Bush won young voters, right?
And millennials.
What, 50?
Yeah, and millennials too. Yeah.
And now, obviously, it's preposterous to think the Republicans would ever win young voters.
Yeah, I mean, well, who knows? We'll see.
Young men vote for Republicans. It's young women that don't.
Yeah, young men are switching to the Republican Party pretty heavily, actually, across the world. It's not more right-wing parties. That's kind of interesting. McCain,
If you look actually at the state-by-state results, so McCain was within 1% in North Carolina, and that was the only state he was within 1% of Obama. Now there are a couple where he was within 2% or 3%, but you could shift those over. Like, he goes from being down less than 1% in North Carolina to being down a little over 1% in Indiana. He lost by a little over 1% in Nebraska second. He lost by almost 3% in Florida. And then you get to Ohio where he lost by 4.5%.
Yeah, and I believe
everything else is likely.
Yeah, I believe that
likely on RCP is 5% or higher.
I think so, yeah.
Everything else is likely or safe, which is completely disgusting, by the way.
I believe that no one's won North Carolina. No Democrats won North Carolina since that, because I think he lost to Romney barely, I think, in 2012. But that was the last time North Carolina's voted blue, as far as I'm aware, in a presidential election, which is just fascinating. Like, you get I guess the burst onto the scene that Obama's campaign really had allowed him to win Iowa. He won Iowa with 54% of the vote. That's a pretty big.
Michigan by 17.
Yeah, it's preposterous. Like, honestly,
that's actually revolting.
It's insane. He had 57% of the vote in Wisconsin. I mean, like, or 56%. Sure, why not? Like, let's go. We gotta check DC. Hold on. DC. What do you want to guess?
92.46%.
92%.
That's actually an underperformance.
That's an underperformance. Yeah, McCain.
That's an underperformance for
McCain had some friends. McCain probably had some friends. Yeah, that's. Oh, actually, he did worse the second time. Obama did 90.91 in 2012. Interesting.
Oh. You're not getting 95% DC as a Democrat. You failed at your job.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton got 91 too. Biden got 92. But yeah, no, it's it was. This is probably one of the few blowouts we had in modern history. I guess the next one too, but we're not gonna talk about 2012. But yeah, that's. Is there anything else we need to mention? Obama's.
I mean, and then we can get through Obama's presidency quickly. I mean, this is a modern one, so we can get through it pretty quickly. I mean, people kind of know what you get, but you get
drone strikes.
Don't ask, don't tell in the military. You get the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, so kind of reforming Wall Street after
the bailouts.
Yeah. You get bailouts for the auto industry. You get, obviously Benghazi was a big thing. The killing of Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, John Cena's reveal, of course. Yeah, iconic.
We get the big kahuna, Obamacare, which John McCain actually was the one who voted to tank the repeal of Obamacare. Fun historical fact there. But Obama, he ordered the closure of Guantanamo Bay. It's still not closed. Forget, actually, the Senate environment this time. Obama comes into the White House with a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, and a super majority in the Senate.
Yeah.
We will never see that again in modern history.
This is a massive... See, now a lot of Democrats blame Obama. Or not even just Obama. They blame the whole Congress at that time. And... people will blame them, but, like, obviously none of the legislators want to do this. But, like, they could have codified Roe v. Wade. That was a concern. They maybe could have. It was a little contentious. They had the votes to get... They're the closest ever to codifying things like Roe v. Wade, which I know that, like... And even, like, I guess, not Obergefell, but, like, that was the kind of... I guess the criticism, if you look at it from, like, a more progressive lens that I hear from people on Obama, is like, yeah, but they didn't do... Like, these aren't even, like... obscure things. I think these are things that, like, they could have done. I think they could have codified Roe v. Wade. Could have found a way to do it. Doesn't really... I mean, it's not my personal... Like, I think the states... Having state rights is probably the better option, but they could have done it and they didn't do it,
Yeah.
right? So like that's the and
You
also
got
the drone strikes.
the Patriot Act.
Yeah,
You got DACA.
yeah,
You got uh, almost three Supreme Court nominations. You've got Sotomayor and Kagan. Sotomayor is now the oldest liberal justice. She's, I think,
Really?
70 years old now. People are pushing her to retire.
They
Just
should
in case
wait.
he doesn't make it through Trump's second term if he wins.
They can't tell her to retire then when you have Biden running for re-election. Like, I'm sorry, there's no way. You're 80.
Well,
you're 82 years
problem,
old, man.
The thing is now you're not going to have presidents nominate justices in like an election year.
Yeah,
At least
no,
when
absolutely
the Senate's
not.
not in their favor. Like, she could retire, and the Democrats could absolutely get someone else through.
Yeah, they could. They could do it.
I don't think they actually could because I don't think Sinema or Manchin would vote for it. That's the problem.
That's true.
Because if they had I guess what they would consider a Democratic majority, not a Republican majority, they could absolutely get another justice through. But I don't think they're going to do that.
They're not going to do it. I mean, again, I'm like, hey, if you're listening, just so if they're telling you to retire, you got to tell them that President Biden is 81 years old and he's running for re-election. So like, if he's backing himself to make it through a second term, then like, you gotta believe in yourself. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Oh, you've also got the JCPOA with Iran, the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris Climate Agreement. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Obama's 8 years. The JCPOA actually is relevant now because I think Iran is getting pretty close to fully enriching their uranium and having nuclear weapons, which that's going to be a rough day for the Middle East when that happens. We'll see how that goes. But there were so many different things that happened in Obama's 8 years. It was just a very transformative, I think, 8 years for the nation. And I think Obama is part of the reason we actually get Trump. Is I think a lot of the Ohioans, Iowans, the white working class union voters that voted for Obama in 2008, I don't think were particularly happy with him.
No, I don't think so at all.
Happy
Yeah.
with Democrats in 2016, and that's kind of how we get Trump.
Yeah. I will give
evangelical Christians being angry about whatever Obergefell or whatever it may be. You kind of have a weird alliance, and that's how you get Trump. And
Yeah,
that's kind
absolutely.
of what a lot of Republicans are nowadays. It's kind of the alliance between the evangelical right and the white working class right.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Used to be the white working class left, and now the working class is moving to the right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I mean, like, Obama, I think I will give Obama this. I'm not a big fan of his. FISA expansions, Patriot Act expansions, big no-no for me. Drone strikes on random people at weddings, not great. Things like that, a little too much. He did kill Osama bin Laden, and we did get that John Cena clip.
And he did give a based speech after it.
He did, yes. That's one of the highlights, and obviously everyone's glad he did that. But I think he was he was a good president from like age to like, he was kind of a cultural figure too. I think he was kind of the right person in like that type of person, that archetype of person needed to be the president in those 8 years because we had such a big technological revolution those 8 years too. Like to get from where we were in 2008 to where we are in 2017, which I would say
iPhone 1 to like the iPhone eight or 9 by then.
I'm like, I think that was like, and I think that was the critical period of innovation because now it's like, I mean, you can take 2016 to now, it's pretty similar. Like you're already at a point, but like from 2008 to now, absolutely not. They're much different. I remember vividly like 2010. Like 2010 is like a year I remember fully, and like extrapolating that 2016 is not possible. So I will give Obama credit for that. I also give Obama credit because he left office pretty popular, 59% approval leaving office according to the American Presidency Project's final. This is the Gallup poll, but 59%. Clinton left with 66%, but no one else. Oh, actually, Reagan left. But he was one of the more popular presidents leaving office. Contrast that with George W. Bush, 34% on Gallup, and Trump, 34% as well. I will say Trump probably got lost 5 to 10 points because of January 6th, so that's his fault on that one. But yeah, no, I mean, Obama left office fairly popular, but I don't think people liked the policy. I think they liked the icon of Obama. Like, people like Obama's he's like a cool person, right? Like, he's not just like a presidential figure. He's kind of like a cultural figure. I think we see that now because it's like Netflix deals and stuff. So yeah, he's really making the most of it post presidency. He should run for like Senate or something again. Wouldn't that be funny? We never had I think you're muted, but we never had a president, or your sound's not working. We've never had a president go back into Congress, as far as I'm aware.
We've had one.
We've had one. Who was it?
Yeah, John Quincy Adams served in Congress for 18 years after he was president.
Oh, he's so based for that. Yeah, that's crazy. All right, well, yeah, he did. Good for him. Hey, man.
Random fact,
had no idea.
There's a lot of stuff up here now.
Yeah.
But I think Obama lays the foundation for the modern Democratic Party where we are now.
Yeah.
And that's part of still why President Biden kind of has an iron grip over the party, is probably because, and not that I'm attributing behind the scenes work to President Obama, but I do think President Obama still has influence in the party.
Well, he is, yeah. He's an advisor, I think, to the Biden administration right now on the campaign side, yeah.
And I think that people still very much respect him and respect, I guess, Biden through him, as Biden was his vice president for 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and he's only 62 years old, so he has a while. So he's going to be around in the Democratic Party for a long time. So, yeah.
Exactly. But, I mean, that's all I've got on this. I mean, do we want to rate him, or are we too modern to do
I don't really know how to rate him, honestly. Like, I don't think...
I don't think enough time has elapsed where we can truly give him a rating.
I don't think... I don't know. He was definitely a better president than Bush, in my opinion. I think President Bush was well, then I said it last time. I think President Bush was one of the worst presidents we've had. I do think he was better. I don't think... It's hard, because you can't say Trump was, like, a good president, but, like, I think Trump before COVID, when he really fell off the rails, was a pretty decent president, but then he went crazy. So, it's unfortunate. I think Obama did really well with the situation he had going into the 2008. Not a fan of the bailouts, but, like, looking at it economically, it's really Bernanke that did that, so... yeah, I don't know. This was I'll give Obama a mid-tier. I'll say he was top 30. That's not that high. I'll say he's top half, because I do think he has an important legacy, but I wouldn't give him top 10 by any means. A lot of people give him top 10. He's ranked pretty highly. It's kind of weird.
I don't know where I would put him. I'd probably have to look at a list, because because I feel like if you gave me presidents, I could say, oh, who was better, but I don't know. I would have to think about. I think there are some sectors where I would rate him fairly highly, and I think there are other sectors where I would rate him fairly poorly. He's one of the first ones where, like, the 2016 election was during his administration. That was the first election where I actually kind of knew really what was going on. Yeah, I don't have anything too ill to say to him. I
Yeah, Obama has 14 animals named after him, like scientific names. So there's that.
That's kind of cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that is the episode, I guess. Thank y'all for listening. I don't know, we talked about a lot of stuff on this one, but we're back. Yeah. We have 2 more presidential election episodes to do. We have 2016. That's gonna be a lot of fun, because we're gonna just clown Hillary Clinton the whole time. I'm already knowing, and then we're gonna have. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Then we're gonna have 2020. Maybe we'll do 2016 from Europe. Who knows? That might be kind of fun. We could do that, yeah. And then 2020, which will be very interesting as well. And then we're home free on that front. We went from 1796 to now. Go to pppolitical.com. We've started our election coverage. So the boy John wrote a quick explainer article about what the Electoral College is, how it works. If you have any ideas or questions about, like, how elections work, let us know. We'll do, like, articles on this like this, kind of just breaking down the history, why it exists, how it works, because who really knows? Hopefully you will after you read it. But yeah, that's about everything. Thank you all for listening. Share this and all that. I'm Eshan Pokhrel.
I'm Michael Bodeker.
And goodbye.